Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. We have a terrific guest today, Selena Salazar, who is, well, let me just put it this way. If you want to get an MBA and you want to work for four of the most admired companies on the face of the earth, you want to listen to what Selena has to say. Why? She's currently a senior product manager at Facebook, but after getting her MBA from Michigan Ross, she went to work for Intel in product management. Then she went to Google for 3.5 years. Then she went to Apple for 2 years, even working at the end on Apple TV, and now Facebook for 9 months. Selena, what a career you've already had.
Thank you. It's been an exciting run.
Absolutely. So you were at UC San Diego getting an electrical engineering degree, which just boggles my mind to begin with, because that's so far beyond my capabilities. I'm immediately in awe of you, okay? But then you go to Michigan, and clearly it looks like you went to Michigan for the MBA to make a transition in your career. Is that right?
That's correct. I actually wrote my admissions essay on becoming a product manager. And I can't believe that's actually what I am now, which is it's still pretty amazing to me.
That's wild, because for 7+ years you were at Qualcomm as an engineer. What made you know that, number one, you wanted to become a product manager, and number two, that you needed an MBA to make the transition?
Yeah, those are good questions. So I can't say I knew for sure I wanted to be a product manager, but I knew that it could be potentially a really good next step for me. I had taken a couple classes while at Qualcomm, and they were called Business Acumen for Engineers, and they were just really interesting. And all of a sudden, I was getting exposed to things that I never learned in school and that I hadn't actually been learning day to day in my work. And I just wanted to learn more, and I wanted to know more about all these different areas of business.
So that kind of whetted your appetite for the MBA.
Yeah, then I went and got the GMAT book and started studying.
Oh, the awful GMAT book. Come on. But you were an engineer, so you just killed it.
I actually thought about law school, but there was no math on that test.
Why Michigan Ross? What drew you there?
Like any good MBA candidate or prospective MBA, you have the spreadsheet and it's color coded and there's tons of rows and columns and it's weighted.
Now, wait,
But I think
not everyone does that. Only engineers do that.
maybe true. Yeah, maybe true. And so, but it really, I think, came down to three things. And number one, I think, was the brand. Michigan's got a great brand. It's well known. When you see it on a resume, you know that person has a quality education and that's, a highly respected institution. And it's also, it's beyond brand. It's also the network. So you know that the people who went there, they're everywhere, right? It's hard to go somewhere and not run into a Michigan alum, whether that's Ross or not, right? So you get the network not just of Ross, but also all the other great Michigan programs like engineering and the social work school and all these other great schools that they have there, which is pretty incredible. And then lastly, location. So I'm a born and raised Californian. I've always been in California. This might sound weird, but I was really excited about winter and like making it through a Michigan winter, which everybody said was this big deal. And I think prospective MBAs and MBAs, we like a challenge. So I also wanted to get outside of my comfort zone, and a big part of that was location. I wanted to go to a small college town where everybody has to leave their previous networks behind, a place that's not a huge metro hub, and a place that I knew I wouldn't necessarily stay at forever because I was pretty sure I wanted to come back to California.
Right.
But because the weather, but I wanted to experience it for a few years somewhere that I would really love.
And everyone is getting a view of your Northern California beautiful weather right there.
Yes, sunny California.
So what did you find when you went to Michigan Ross? What were your first impressions?
Well, I was lucky enough to apply at a time where you could travel and go visit the school before. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of empathy for people now applying who don't get to go and visit. But what I really just loved the current students, the alumni, just the rich education, the faculty that we were learning from were writing the books. And as I mentioned before, the alumni, but also there was a lot of action-based learning that happens there.
Right.
So a couple examples. One is MAP, which is a multidisciplinary action program, where you get to do a real consulting program for a real company over 8 weeks with a bunch of your classmates. But they also have, there's other opportunities. I was co-chair for the Admit Weekend, which was really exciting. And for me, the ability to go from being an engineer and being in a lab every day to then hosting, 500 people at the most social event the school puts on, and then also going in that summer doing a brand marketing internship at a beer company were just things that Miller Coors, I could have never imagined that. And it was just an opportunity to really get outside of my comfort zone and learn a ton by actually doing rather than just reading it in a book.
Yeah. And we should point out that MAP, a lot of schools have these consulting assignments, but virtually no schools other than Michigan literally break the academic calendar so that you're doing nothing except your project for those 7-8 weeks.
Oh yeah, that's the quarter.
Even working on premises in some cases. Do you remember what your MAP project was about?
I do, and I can say I was a little disappointed because I really wanted an international program project, and I didn't get that. But I made up for it by studying abroad the next year for a quarter, and I went. So I should say I did go to Michigan a little bit for the weather, but I only survived one winter because the next one I went to Argentina and did study abroad in Argentina while it was summer there and winter in Michigan, which again, another incredible opportunity that I got because I was at Michigan. So my MAP was doing a social media project for an insurance company. Again, something I didn't have experience in, but I got to work with my classmates and go through the whole setting up the project and doing interviews and just doing all the steps and then delivering a final product that I actually used a lot of that framework for my summer internship.
And then you landed the brand management internship at Miller Coors, where you worked on Miller Lite. What was that like?
It was the most fun I'd ever had at a job until then. And it was interesting because I always thought like, oh, when I can go to the suite at a baseball game, that's when I'll know I've made it. And of course we went to the suites at baseball games and I thought, well, I should have bigger goals. But it was amazing. It was actually a really incredible education moment for me to learn about a very CPG company and how they look at the customer and how they look at all the data behind it and, who's using their product and when and where are they buying it and who's buying it and how is the purchaser different than the user and things like that. And that was just something that, again, coming from engineering, I had never had firsthand experience with.
Now, since you knew you wanted to do product management, were you taking electives at Michigan Ross that would kind of set you up and give you a head start on those kinds of jobs?
So once I got to Michigan, I thought, oh, maybe I want to do marketing, which kind of lends itself to why I went to Miller Coors, which I actually really loved, but I completely underestimated how much I would miss technology. I found myself still reading a lot about it. I might date myself, but this was at a time where companies were spending more on silicon for mobile than they were desktop, and that was a big deal. That was like a huge deal that summer, and I remember being really excited and thinking, I probably shouldn't be in CPG if this is what I'm excited about. So I was taking a lot of general marketing electives and then general management electives. I didn't take too much into product management because I had the engineering background that I really focused on the gaps that I had, which were marketing and general management. So I did do a lot in those spaces.
And you were really involved in a lot of co-curricular stuff. You mentioned that you headed up Admit Weekend, but I looked at your resume and you actually did quite a bit. How did you manage to balance, the social pieces of the MBA experience, where you also get to flex your leadership muscles with the hardcore curriculum?
Yeah, it's hard. You have to really pick and choose what you want to do, and you can't be everywhere. It's where I learned what FOMO was, the fear of missing out. I also think I didn't go there with the intent of being super involved or doing a ton of things beyond academics. But one of the great things about going to a small college town, not in a metro, and especially Ann Arbor in Michigan, is you don't have your home network there. So you don't have to necessarily, go home for somebody's birthday, or people excuse it if you miss a lot of family functions.
Hmm.
So I had a lot more free time than I would have if I had stayed, somewhere in California where my family might have expected me to go back for certain things.
Yeah,
And so it was, you don't go to business school to get bored.
that's for sure. Now, did you have a favorite course or two?
That's a good question. I had a lot. I think a lot of the course. I mean, they were all great. I had an interesting one on sensory marketing that I thought was really phenomenal, just because it was things I had never really thought about. The color of things, the smell, the taste, just the way it looks, the texture, and to have an entire course dedicated to that was fascinating to me. I also, because it was a marketing course, there were generally a lot of other aspiring marketers or people who had already been deep into marketing in that class. So I learned so much from my classmates in that, and just the questions that they asked and the things that they noticed, and the backgrounds that they brought into it, it was fascinating.
Now, Selena, you have a personality that's nothing like an engineer, right?
It's probably why I didn't stay very long in engineering.
Well, I say that because the other part of an MBA experience that's often underappreciated is personal and professional development. And I wonder, to what extent Ross helped shape, the new you post MBA.
Yeah, it's a deep question, but I think it's a really important question, because a business school it's a huge investment in not just financially, but also your time and you as a person, and whether you go part-time or full-time, maybe you're giving up working completely. And there's a lot of, I think, self-reflection that comes in process, and then also when your job search takeaway has been a sense of confidence, and not in an arrogant way, but in a, I can do this, I can learn this. I may not direct in it, but you know what? Now doing things I've never before, and I have experience doing those successfully. Not because it's all me or I'm so much better than anybody else, but because I can leverage the people I know, I can leverage my network, I can learn, and I can find those resources. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from Ross. And that's something I definitely got because of all the activities that I was involved in there.
Yeah. Now, another part of the MBA experience, of course, is the guidance that you get in determining your career and getting that first post MBA job. You landed at Intel, really great company. Tell us how Ross helped you get that job.
So, interesting story is they actually came to campus to recruit,
Mhm.
and they had closed listed me, and I declined to interview. And I sent them, because you learn at Ross how you properly decline. And I sent them a very nice note, and said, I'm not sure I want to go back into tech. This was fresh off of my summer internship, and I had a great offer to go back to Miller Coors. And again, I had learned a ton. It was great. And I was still very undecided. So I had, declined the closed list, and then I actually declined my full-time offer from Miller Coors, and then there I was without a job. And then I had decided, oh, you know what? Now I actually do want to go back into tech. So I still kick myself for that. But they had actually reached back out to me because I was graduating from Ross, and I went out and interviewed, met some other great rosters there. And they actually remembered me from the note that I had sent, and they said, oh yeah, I remember that resume. We really wanted to talk to you. So it's just, I mean, Ross helped me get that first job, but they also helped me not mess up that opportunity,
Mm,
which is equally important, and save those relationships, and make sure that, I did save the spot for the people who really wanted it and were really sure, because I also think had I interviewed at that time, I probably wouldn't have gotten it, because I was so unsure of what I wanted.
yeah,
But by the time it came around, I was very sure. And then I think also just being successful there. So once you get to a company, you reach out to, of course, the other alums there, and people who can be kind of your trusted network. And the first people you ask maybe those dumb questions you don't want to ask your boss. You'll ask the Ross alums, and they're always super helpful. Whether it's getting something done faster or just knowing the correct answer to maybe a dumb question.
yeah. Dumb questions are always important. They're the most important questions to ask.
Yes.
So, in getting the Intel job, I mean, how many different companies did you interview with on the campus? Do you remember?
So many. And I was getting a bit nervous, and I had actually decided, okay, I'm not going to interview anywhere else. I interviewed with a lot of companies. I didn't get a lot of jobs that I probably didn't even want, which goes back to kind of knowing yourself and what you want, because I had started interviewing for companies that I didn't really want to work for roles I really didn't want. And then I was getting sad about jobs I wasn't getting that I didn't actually want. So one of the things that if you don't know yourself is you can really easily get the perfect job for somebody else. And so it's really important to kind of one, not get the jobs you don't want, but also to learn what it is that you want and where you want to go, and you know how you tell a story to go from where you are to there.
Were you surprised that you were able to interview with so many companies and at least look at so many opportunities? I imagine that for many people, and maybe even for you, coming out of undergrad working at Qualcomm for 7+ years, you know, you don't have that experience of being so flattered that there are all these amazing companies that you know because their brand names are, you know, global and universal and part of our vocabulary. And suddenly the door opens, and my God, they're willing to answer your questions. They're willing to see you. They're willing to wine and dine you. The alumni at the school, at the companies will talk to you. So many doors seem to open. Was that a big surprise to you, or was that an expectation? How did it feel?
I mean, everybody likes to hear that they're pretty, right? Like it's super flattering. And I don't know, I don't think that I expected it, but I don't know what I had expected. But no, I had never seen anything like that where there's so many companies vying for such effectively a small group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, they're willing to answer your questions and they're willing to chat with you. And also, if they don't come to campus, chances are somebody you go to school with knows somebody there, or there's an alum there, but they don't come to campus because, you know, the team is like 10 people. And so it's even beyond the people who come to campus. I also think the companies that come to campus, they wear both the company hat and the alumni hat. So they're more than willing to help you interview or give you tips, because even if you don't get a job with that company, they still want you to do well. And I think for me, that was really important and actually really great to see.
So you went from Intel to Google to Apple to Facebook. Did
Yep.
the Ross network play any role in any of that?
Oh, absolutely. I think at one, I won't call them out by name, but I think at one place I got interviewed and hired solely on the basis of Michigan Ross. There
Well,
were
I
a
love
lot of
that.
there were a lot of Michigan and Ross alums there, to the point where I had interviewed with one of the VPs, and he said, "Oh, another one." And so it's been a lot of fun. But I think even at the places where you know, maybe the other ones where it maybe wasn't the reason I got the job, or you know, obviously looks great on a resume, but it also helps in learning about the company before you interview. So talking to alums or people in your network at those companies and getting the real scoop, and figuring out what you should know for the interview, and just the overall interview prep, which you learn so hardcore at Michigan, that you still continue and you reach out for that information as you're interviewing at other companies. And then, as I mentioned before, once you get to the company and you're there, how do you move faster? How do you do better? How are you more impactful? And a lot of that comes from who are your trusted people at the company. And so being able to have that network right away. And I mean, like I said, Michigan has so many other great schools that there's engineering leadership who, you know, people went to engineering undergrad at Michigan or grad school. And so they also become part of your trusted network, not just the business school, but for me, at least the engineering school has been really critical for me.
So Selena, you've had 4 product management jobs at 4 of the leading tech companies in the world. Product management is a field in tech where a lot of MBAs want to be. What exactly is a product management job, and why is it so appealing? You look so happy, so it must be a really good thing.
It is. I love it. I could not have planned it better. I know I said I wrote my essays on it, but like living it, writing it, and living it, completely different things. I think so. It's very different from company to company. Not every product management role is the same, just like no company is the same. So you know, I think it's really important to find out what does that role really mean at that company. It's been very different from places that I've been, but it's been very exciting, and I think I found a home for a while.
Yeah, that's great. In some cases, it can be like you're a CEO of a mini business, right?
Yep.
as a manager of a product, and you have to work with a lot of different people. And oftentimes you work with people that you don't really have a reporting relationship with. It's sort of on your side. And so it's your influence, your personal influence, that can matter greatly in a product management job, right?
Correct. And I think it's that's where people talk about the soft skills and those kinds of classes that you take in business school that are actually really important, and you learn little tips and tricks. You kind of at first start practicing them in your personal life, and then when you get back to working, then you start practicing them in real life, or in the work world, which is interesting. But yeah, lots of different personalities, different motivations, different working styles. And for me, I learned a lot, at least in the MAP project, and how to work with other people from very different backgrounds. And I actually think that helped a lot. And then some of those management classes helped as well. But yeah, a large part of it is definitely working with other people, and a lot of influence, because you can, everybody works for you, but nobody works for you, has been said quite often. And I would say everybody has the same goal, or should, but it's I think for people who enjoy it, they really enjoy it.
So let me take you back and imagine what it was like when you were applying and you were studying for the GMAT. If you had one important piece of advice for your former self back in those years, what do you think it would be?
Well, I don't know that I would have listened to myself. So I would say take a deep breath. I would say make some bigger goals. MBA applicants in general are very driven, very accomplished. They can set goals and achieve them. So I would say set bigger goals, because the ones you have, you probably will reach. And then just make sure you're happy with where you choose, because it's your journey and you have to look back at that time and be happy with it. So it's also a personal journey.
Great advice. Selena, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure
Thank
to meet you. And that's Selena Salazar, who is a senior product manager at Facebook. I'm going to say what year you graduated with your MBA, 2012. It looks like it was last year. Come on.
Feels like
that
yesterday.
Northern California sunny weather, right?
Yeah, feels like 2 days ago.
Hey, here's one last question. Okay.
Yeah.
You're a woman who's made her post MBA career in Silicon Valley.
Yep.
There's a lot of talk, and has been in recent years, about bro culture and everything else. And I should just tell everyone that before we went on, I asked why you were outside, and you said, well, it's a good place to hide from my children. So clearly you've been able to figure out how to have a relatively balanced life. You're a mother, a wife, very successful in the tech field, in what has long been considered fairly male. What's it really like?
It is really male. So for anybody who is not male listening, please come. We want you. But also, doing engineering undergrad, I think I was already used to it. I'm not saying that's how it should be forever, but I was used to it. And so I have a family. We kind of just manage day by day, and especially now things are kind of crazy. But I have 3 young kids, and it's not so much a balancing act, but more of a survive the day, prioritize the things, and just, make it through the end of the day, the end of the week, and know where your priorities are.
Yeah, I always say you don't achieve work-life balance in a day or a week or a month. You hopefully achieve it over a lifetime, because there are going to be days that are going to be like hell, and you just got to grind through them, and there are going to be easier days. But if over your lifetime you can achieve some semblance of balance, maybe that's the ideal situation.
Yeah,
Selena,
absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck to you. This is
Thanks.
John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for watching.